What the fuck is wrong with the people who think that giving birth to a child is one of the best things they can do to this world and that their children should thank them for it? No matter from which angle you look at this, it does not seem to be a universally good thing. It might be a useful thing for you personally, or simply something you want to do, but not a good thing in itself. From a historical point of view, people had children as an insurance policy. If you make, let's say, 10 babies, there is a high chance that at least some of them will survive until you get old and they will take care of you. Of course, you have to indoctrinate them and force them to believe that they must respect their parents, follow their rules, and take care of the elderly. Luckily, you have a lot of time for that, and infantile minds are very malleable. As bonus points, you get cheap labor. Of course, you have to feed them and house them, but you have to do the same thing with slaves. Except you save money on chains and whips and avoid the burden of guarding them so they would not escape. Well, given the fact that you didn't fail on the indoctrination task. And paid labor was even more expensive. Remember, we are talking about old days, when raising a child was cheaper than hiring someone, and industrial machines did not yet exist. So from the historical perspective, having a child was clearly a selfish decision, and it had nothing to do with some moral goodness. These days, situation is a little bit different. We have better insurance policies than making a bunch of babies. We have pensions, saving accounts, social security, and whatnot. We have cheaper ways to get stuff done as well. We have machines, computers, robots, and people in poor countries. So there is no clear economical incentive to make babies anymore. But there is another huge selfish reason instead. We are bored. Of course, we have endless variety of toys that we can buy in a shopping mall, including phones, computers, house appliances, musical instruments, clothes, sex toys, and all the other stuff that I cannot even think of right now. However, after a certain amount of time, all that stuff tends to become boring, and people begin to want living toys. For some people it is enough to get a cat or a dog or even a snake, but others go all the way and make their own personal human beings. Again, it is clearly a selfish reason that leads us to making babies, and not a moral one. If we look from environmentalistic perspective, we should acknowledge that there are 7.4 billion people in this world and counting. Every single one of them contributes to climate change by breathing, and most of them by buying and using stuff that either pollute the earth, or at least the process of making them does. And this is only climate change. What about other types of pollution, habitat destruction, negative impact on ecosystems on a local and global scale, and all the other negative influence on the environment? Every new human being that we decide to make worsens the problem for all the existing people and for all the other living beings on this earth. So from the environmentalistic perspective, not only there is no good moral reason to make babies, but there is a good moral reason not to make them. But what if we don't give a shit about environment and derive our morals from religion? Well, if you don't make a baby, there is no chance for it to go to hell. And if you do make a baby, there is at least a small chance that it will eventually go to hell. And in reality, there is quite a big chance for a person to go to hell. If you don't get baptized, you go to hell. If you become an atheist, you go to hell. If you commit some sins and don't apologize for them, you go to hell. And I am sure there are more ways to go to hell that I'm not aware of. Since going to hell is not a good thing, making babies is not a good thing either. Actually, the only way to guarantee that a baby will go to heaven instead of hell is to baptize a baby and kill him straight away before he is able to commit a sin or become an atheist. Unfortunately, that way you yourself would go to hell. But hey, isn't sacrificing yourself for the sake of others what a true believer should do? So, once more, from a religious perspective, making a baby is not a morally good thing to do, unless you are prepared to kill him soon after his birth. Okay, so what about philosophical perspective? Well, if you bring a person to this world, you guarantee that he will have at least some bad experiences in his life, and will feel bad at least occasionally. And making someone feel bad and live through shitty situations is not a morally good thing. Especially when that person had no say in this, and the only option he is left with is to shut up and live with it, and pretend that he likes the situation, otherwise things might get even worse. Okay. But what about all the good things in life that unborn children are missing? You see, unborn children don't exist, so they cannot be missing anything. There are no non-existent people wishing to exist, because non-existent people do not exist by definition. However, there are quite a few existing people who wish to not exist. So nope. Philosophically speaking, making a child is a crime against that child, and definitely not a morally good thing. But what about our biology? Animals make babies and we are animals too, so shouldn't we make babies as well? You see, animals don't make babies for moral reasons. Sex gives pleasure and babies come afterwards as a side effect. Then parenting instinct kicks in and voila, we have new babies without any moral reasoning involved. And we shouldn't forget that in some cases, animals eat some of their babies. So if we derive our morals from animal kingdom, we should at least admit that eating babies is also a morally good thing. Maybe parents should eat their babies and be proud of that instead. What is it I hear you saying? Screw you, I'm going to have a child anyway? Well, I didn't expect to persuade you not to do selfish things you want to do. We are selfish creatures and we do selfish things all the time. I mean, if you really want a living toy and a dog is simply not good enough for you, and you don't care about bringing suffering to another human being and worsening the situation for all the other human beings and animals on this planet, probably nobody is going to convince you not to do that. Just don't pretend that you're doing something at least remotely altruistic, because you're not. And don't expect your children thanking you for all the suffering you entailed, unless your indoctrination skills are rock solid. In that case, leave a comment below and convince me that I'm wrong. Or simply share your favorite children recipes or something.